First story. I ran away from my home at 17 after my parents and step-siblings' constant neglect and bullying. Now, 19 years later, they contacted me, wanting to reconcile and said Mom is dying. My own wife betrayed me, trying a forced reconciliation, believing their lies, and humiliated me. It was all just a prank by my family to trick me into reconciliation. Now my wife is begging for my forgiveness. I never thought I'd hear from them again. For 19 years, I've lived my life without a single call, message, or sign that they even remembered I existed. And honestly, that was fine by me. I didn't need them. I didn't want them. When I ran away at 17, they made it painfully clear they weren't going to come looking. Not then, and not for almost 2 decades. But last week, my stepbrother Adam called me. He said my mom is dying, that she wants to see me before it's too late, and that she wants to apologize for everything. I've spent the last few days trying to process what that even means. Apologize. For what, exactly? For the years of abuse, neglect, and bullying? For turning me into their scapegoat and punching bag? Or for the fact that when I left, they didn't even bother to look for me? And now I'm here, asking strangers on the internet for advice, because I genuinely don't know what the hell to do. Let me take you back to the start, so you can understand where I'm coming from. I was 10 when my mom remarried. My dad wasn't really in the picture. He left when I was 6, so when my stepdad and his kids, Adam and Jenna, moved in, I was hopeful. Stupidly hopeful. I thought maybe this would be my chance at having a real family again. I thought I'd have siblings to hang out with, a stepdad who'd treat me like one of his own, and a mom who'd finally seem happy again. Yeah, that fantasy didn't last long. From the moment Adam and Jenna moved in, I was the outsider. Adam was 2 years older than me, and Jenna was 1 year older, and they made it very clear that I wasn't part of their little club. At first, it was small stuff ignoring me, whispering and laughing whenever I walked into a room, but it quickly got worse. Adam was a bully, plain and simple. He'd shove me, break my stuff, and call me names just to see me react. Jenna was sneakier, but just as cruel. She'd spread rumors about me at school, throw out my homework, and steal anything that made me remotely happy. I tried to tell my mom. I tried to explain what they were doing to me, but every time I did, she brushed it off. She'd say, "They're just teasing you," or "Stop being so sensitive," or worse, "If they're treating you like that, maybe you should look at what you're doing to deserve it." As for my stepdad, he didn't outright abuse me, but he didn't do anything to stop it either. If Adam shoved me into a wall, he'd laugh and say, "Boys will be boys." If Jenna screamed at me, he'd just shrug and act like it was normal sibling behavior. I could tell I was just the extra baggage that came with marrying my mom. By the time I turned 14, I'd stopped trying to stand up for myself. What was the point? My mom didn't care. My stepdad didn't care. And Adam and Jenna thrived on my misery. I was the scapegoat for everything that went wrong in that house. If Adam failed a test, it was somehow my fault for distracting him. If Jenna lost something, I must have taken it. My mom's favorite line became, "Why can't you just behave? You're always causing problems." The breaking point came when I was 16. Jenna accused me of stealing money from her. I hadn't touched it, I didn't even know she had money, but she told my mom and stepdad, and they believed her without question. No investigation, no chance to defend myself. They just decided I was guilty. My stepdad screamed at me, called me a disgrace, and told me I'd never amount to anything. My mom, she just shook her head and said, "I'm so disappointed in you." They punished me by grounding me for a month, locking me in my room, except for school, and refusing to let me eat with the family. It was like I didn't exist anymore, except when they wanted to remind me how ungrateful I was. That was when I realized I didn't have a family. Not really. A year later, I was done. I couldn't stay there anymore, not if I wanted to survive. I started saving up every penny I could from my part-time job, and one night, I packed a bag and left. I took what little I had: clothes, a backpack, some cash, and walked out the door. I left a note on the kitchen counter. "Don't bother looking for me." But here's the thing. I didn't think they'd actually listen to me. A small, stupid part of me hoped they'd try to find me. That they'd call, or send someone, or at least act like they gave a damn. They didn't. Not a single call. Not a single search. Nothing. The first year after I ran away was hell. I was 17, broke, and terrified. I couldn't finish high school because I didn't have my certificates. That meant I had to drop out and redo semesters later, which set me back years. I bounced between friends' couches, worked SHTTY under-the-table jobs, and did things I'm not proud of just to get by. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I did some shady stuff, like stealing and selling. But I didn't have a choice. It was either survive or go back to that house. And I swore to myself I'd never go back. Eventually, I scraped together enough to put myself through trade school. It wasn't easy. There were nights I didn't eat, weeks I barely slept, but I made it. By the time I was in my mid-20s, I'd found a steady job, and things started looking up. Now, at 36, I'm living a life I never thought I'd have. I make 6 figures working a job I actually enjoy. I'm married to the most incredible woman I've ever met. And we're financially stable enough that we could retire tomorrow if we wanted to. My wife knows everything about my past, but she's never pushed me to reconnect with my family. She's always said it's my choice, and no matter what I decide, she'll stand by me. She even stood up to her own family for me. When we first got together, her parents weren't thrilled about me, probably because I didn't come from money, but she didn't care. She fought for me, and now they love me like their own son. For 19 years, I've lived without my family, and I thought I'd made peace with it. Then, last week, Adam called me. I don't know how he found my number, but there he was, acting like nothing had happened. At first, I thought it was a prank. He started off all casual, like we were old friends catching up. I almost hung up, but then he said, "Mom's dying. She wants to see you." I don't even know how I responded. He told me they'd moved to a new house and invited me to a family dinner. He said Mom wanted to apologize before it's too late. I didn't give him an answer. I told him I'd think about it and hung up. My wife thinks I should go, but she also warned me to keep my cool. She says I might regret it if I don't let my mom apologize, but I don't trust any of this. Why now? Why, after almost 2 decades, does she suddenly care? Is it guilt, or do they want something from me? Part of me wants to go just to tear into them, to let them know exactly how much they hurt me, and how little I think of them now. But another part of me is scared. What if seeing them brings back everything I've worked so hard to bury? Reddit. What would you do? Should I go and let her apologize? Or should I protect the life I've built and stay away? Update. Hey guys, so I went to the dinner, and honestly, I should have known better. I thought I was prepared for whatever my family might throw at me. But what happened caught me so off guard that I'm still trying to process it. I don't even know where to begin, but I'll try my best to explain. For those of you who didn't see my original post, here's the short version. After 19 years of no contact, my stepbrother suddenly reached out, claiming my mom was dying and wanted to apologize for everything. He invited me to a family dinner to make amends. I debated for days whether or not I should go, but in the end, I decided to go alone. I didn't bring my wife. Not because I didn't trust her or value her support, but because I didn't want her anywhere near what I knew would be an emotional mess. She wanted to come, but I told her this was something I had to handle on my own. I didn't want her to see me like that, angry, broken, or worse, manipulated. So, I went. And to say things didn't go as expected would be the understatement of the year. The moment I pulled up to their house, something felt off. It wasn't the same house I grew up in. They'd moved years ago, but I still expected some sense of familiarity. Instead, the place felt cold, almost staged, like the kind of home you see in real estate ads, but never actually live in. When Adam opened the door, he acted like we'd been best friends all along. He hugged me, which was jarring to say the least, given the history between us. He had this weird energy, like he was trying too hard to be welcoming. The whole thing felt forced, but I played along barely. Inside, the atmosphere was just as strange. My mom came over immediately, hugging me and telling me how happy she was to see me. My stepdad gave me a firm handshake, and they both started asking me questions about my life, my work, and even my wife. It all felt so performative, like they were reading from a script. And then there was my mom. She looked perfectly healthy. There was no sign of illness, no frailty, no fatigue, nothing. My stomach dropped when I realized what that probably meant. Dinner started off slow, with small talk and polite smiles, but I couldn't focus on any of it. My mind kept circling back to what my stepbrother had told me, that my mom was dying and wanted to apologize before it was too late. But looking at her, it was clear there wasn't anything too late about her situation. I finally snapped. I couldn't sit there and pretend everything was fine. I asked them directly what was going on and why I was really there. And just like that, the mask slipped. My mom admitted it first. The story about her dying wasn't true. They'd made it up because they didn't know how else to get me to agree to see them. Apparently, they thought this was the only way to rebuild the family. Hearing that made my blood boil. I'd spent days agonizing over this decision, torn between my anger and the possibility of closure, only to find out it was all based on a sick lie. Adam tried to chime in, saying it was just a plan to bring us all back together, like this was some kind of harmless misunderstanding. I could feel the heat rising in my chest as the years of anger and resentment came flooding back. I don't think I've ever been that angry in my life. Everything I'd held in for 19 years, everything they did to me, everything I'd endured because of them came pouring out all at once. I started yelling, and I couldn't stop. I told my mom how much she'd hurt me, how she'd neglected me, and let her new family treat me like I didn't matter. I told Adam exactly what I thought of him, and how his constant bullying had made my life a living hell. And I let my stepdad have it too, for standing by and doing nothing while I suffered in their home. It wasn't just anger, it was years of pain and betrayal finally being voiced. I was so loud, apparently, that the neighbors started coming over to check what was going on. At one point, someone knocked on the door, but Adam waved them off, clearly embarrassed. My mom started crying, and my stepdad tried to calm me down, saying they'd only wanted to make things right. But that just made it worse. I told them they didn't care about making things right. They cared about making themselves feel better. They didn't even look for me when I ran away. For 19 years, they'd done nothing, and now they thought a manipulative stunt like this would somehow erase all of that. And then, in the middle of all this chaos, my mom said something that left me speechless. She said they wouldn't have been able to find me if it hadn't been for my wife. At first, I thought I misheard her. But then she said it again, explaining how my wife had reached out to them weeks ago and told them how to contact me. She said my wife thought reconnecting with my family might help me heal. I felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. I'd trusted my wife completely, and now I was hearing that she'd gone behind my back to help the very people who destroyed my childhood. I couldn't even respond at first. I just stood there, stunned, as my mom kept talking, telling me how my wife thought this dinner might bring me closure. She made it sound like my wife had orchestrated the whole thing. Everything after that is a blur. I couldn't stay in that house any longer. I barely remember what I said to them before I left, but I know I made it clear I wanted nothing to do with them. I walked out the door and drove away, shaking with anger and betrayal. After I left my family's house, I didn't go home right away. I couldn't. My hands were shaking, my chest felt tight, and my mind was racing. I pulled over a few miles down the road because I needed to breathe. I just sat in my car, staring at nothing, trying to process what had just happened. The dinner was already a disaster, there was no doubt about that. But the part that I couldn't stop replaying was my mom's revelation. She said my wife was the one who contacted them first. My wife, the person who knew everything about what they'd done to me, who had always supported me, had gone behind my back and opened the door to people I'd spent nearly 2 decades trying to escape. When I finally made it home, I was still trying to figure out how to approach her. I was hurt, I was angry, and I knew I needed answers, but I didn't want to explode. Not yet, anyway. She was waiting for me when I walked in, sitting on the couch, looking worried. I think she could tell just from my face that things hadn't gone well. She asked me how the dinner went, and for a second, I didn't know what to say. But then it all came rushing out, the lies, the fake illness, the prank, and finally, the fact that she had been involved. Her face went pale. She started crying almost immediately, which only made me angrier because I wasn't in the mood to comfort her. I asked her if it was true if she had gone behind my back and reached out to my family. She nodded. That's when she told me everything. A few weeks ago, my mom contacted her. She found my wife's email through some mutual connection. We're still not sure how exactly, and wrote her this long, heartfelt message about how much she missed me. She told my wife she regretted everything that had happened between us, and that she just wanted to reconcile before it was too late. My mom claimed she was ill and didn't have much time left. She said she wanted to apologize to me and have one last chance to fix things before she passed. According to my wife, the message sounded completely genuine. She said my mom sounded like someone who was truly remorseful, like someone who was desperate to make things right. My wife admitted she had her doubts, but she didn't want to dismiss it outright in case my mom was actually telling the truth. She knows how much my childhood messed me up, how much pain I've carried because of it, and she thought maybe, just maybe, this could be a chance for me to find closure. So, she replied. Apparently, they exchanged a few emails over the course of a week. My mom played the part perfectly, remorseful, regretful, and full of promises that she just wanted to see me happy again. My wife believed her. She said my mom even cried on the phone during one of their conversations, talking about how much she missed me and how badly she wanted to apologize. But here's the thing. My mom never told her about the prank. She never told her that the whole dying story was fake, or that they planned to ambush me with some kind of staged family reconciliation. My wife swears she didn't know about any of that. I could tell my wife was being sincere. She really didn't know the extent of what my mom had planned. But that didn't make it any easier to hear. I told her how it felt to walk into that house, how humiliating it was to realize they'd lied to get me there, and how betrayed I felt knowing she had been the one to open that door. She started crying harder, saying she was sorry, that she never meant to hurt me, and that she'd only been trying to help. She kept saying she thought she was doing the right thing, that she thought reconnecting with my family might help me. She said she'd noticed how much my past still affected me, even if I didn't talk about it. She thought maybe this was something I needed, even if I didn't realize it myself. But I couldn't get past the fact that she went behind my back. I told her she should have come to me first. She should have talked to me instead of deciding what was best for me on her own. She knew how I felt about my family. She knew how much it hurt me to even think about them. And yet, she made the choice to bring them back into my life without my consent. That's what hurt the most. It wasn't just the lie, it was the fact that she took away my right to decide for myself. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got, not just at my wife, but at my family. My mom didn't just manipulate me, she manipulated my wife too. She knew exactly what to say to tug at her heartstrings, to make herself sound like the victim, to paint this picture of a mother who just wanted to make things right. And then she used that to orchestrate this whole situation. Whether or not they wanted money or anything else from me remains unclear. The whole thing ended before we got to that point, but the possibility lingers in the back of my mind. What if this was just the opening move in a longer game? What if they were planning to ask for something down the line, once they'd soften me up? The thought makes me sick. My mom has always been good at twisting the truth to get what she wants. And now, it seems, she's extended that skill to manipulating the people closest to me. Jenna, my stepsister, showed up late to the dinner with her husband and kids, so I didn't interact with her much that night. But a few days later, she sent me a picture of her kids with a message saying they were excited to meet their uncle. That hit me harder than I expected. On one hand, I feel nothing for her or her kids, they're strangers to me. On the other hand, I couldn't help but wonder if my absence has affected them in some way. Maybe it hasn't, but the idea that I could have been part of their lives, that I could have been a good uncle, makes me feel conflicted. Still, I don't know if I can bring myself to open that door. It's been about a week since the dinner, and I'm still trying to process everything. My wife has been walking on eggshells around me, apologizing constantly and begging for forgiveness. She says she'll do whatever it takes to make things right, therapy, counseling, whatever I want. I know she didn't mean to hurt me. I know she thought she was helping. But the betrayal cuts deep. As for my family, I've decided to go no contact with them again. I don't care if my mom is genuinely sorry, or if she just wants something from me. Either way, the damage is done. But now, I'm left wondering if the damage they caused has spread into my marriage. So, that's where I'm at. Reddit. I'm hurt, angry, and completely lost. Do I give my wife another chance? Or is this betrayal too big to come back from? And what do I do about Jenna's kids? Should I let them into my life? Or is it better to keep them out entirely? I feel like I'm standing at a crossroads, and I have no idea which way to go. Edit. As angry as I was, I've come to realize that I can't blame my wife entirely. She's just as much a victim of my family's manipulation as I was. My mom lied to her, played on her emotions, and fed her the same fake story about being ill that they used to bait me. She truly thought she was helping me, and while her actions hurt me deeply, I know her intentions weren't malicious. I've decided to forgive her. It'll take time to rebuild the trust, but I can see how much she regrets what happened, and I know she was trying to do what she thought was best for me. She wasn't prepared for how manipulative my family can be, and in a way, they used her just like they used me for years. As for my family, they're not even a question. Whether they want money, help, or anything else, I don't care. They've shown me exactly who they are, and I have no intention of letting them back into my life, no matter how genuine they claim to be. Second story. Mom made up the whole story of my father being an abusive, neglectful guy who abandoned us to make herself look good to my stepdad. And I just found out my dad didn't even know about my existence until I lashed out at him in a drunken rage. Now Mom is sorry, blaming her pregnancy hormones at that time and calling it just a mistake. The story I got told at 14 was that my dad wasn't my biological father. He was the man who married my mom after I was already born. And basically my mom and dad thought at the time I deserved to know this, because a few people in our environment kept saying how I didn't look like him. And I was asking them if I was maybe adopted or something. Yeah, I know. Very little was spoken of the man my mom got pregnant with. But the basic gist of it was that he didn't care about mom being pregnant, didn't want a child in the first place. And then she didn't want anything to do with him any further. So she cut all contact, no child support, because my mom's family is well off. I won't bullshit to you and say I wasn't hurt. But I got over it quickly enough with the help of my mom and dad. Sadly, mom and dad got a divorce last year. It just felt like they didn't love each other that way anymore, I guess. They're still good friends with each other, though, with no drama, for which I'm grateful. Still, this sort of prompted me into thinking about my biological father lately, and I ended up looking him up online. Don't know what I expected to see really, but he's just normal, I guess. I might have been thinking he'd have this kind of arsehole look to him because of how he rejected me before I was even born. Anyway, one night after drinking more than I should with some friends on a night out, I did a stupid thing and sent him a message, basically accusing him of being horrible, evil, and other less polite words because of how he abandoned me. The next morning, after I actually remembered what I did, I see his reply to me. It's polite, but confused, and he has no idea who I am or how I'm supposed to be related to him. I had my dad's last name, saying in the end that I probably got the wrong person and wishing me the best. I don't know. It just pissed me off, even though I was sober and a bit hungover. So I fired off several paragraphs to him about who exactly I am, who my mom is, and what he did to us. His reply came in the evening, and it was quite extensive, but I'll sum it up for you. They broke up with each other on bad terms after they were together for a little over a year. She never mentioned any pregnancy to him, and when he tried to contact her later afterwards, because he felt like SHT about how it ended, she rebuffed him and blocked him. And that was the last time he tried getting in touch with her. Needless to say, me being pissed off at him was gone in a flash. And now my father was the one angry at my mom for doing this. I was wondering how to talk to my mom about what I found out. But I didn't have to bother, because my father contacted her first and confronted her about her hiding me from him. We're getting to know each other slowly, mostly over the internet, though we talked a few times over a video chat, because he doesn't live in the same country as us. It'll be time soon enough to meet in real life, and I'm nervous like hell, but by all accounts and the way he's talked to me and held back on sharing me with the rest of his family, I think I'm going to like him a lot. Why the F did she do it? She says she has no idea why she really did this, blames it on pregnancy and stuff, but I don't see how the pregnancy could have influenced her for my whole life. I love her, but there are times when it's just the two of us, and I can't help but hate her for denying the both of us a chance to know each other as I grew up. I can tell my father is hurt about this, though he doesn't talk about it directly, and my mom probably can guess how I feel, given that she just starts tearing up at times when she sees I'm angry or being curt with her. I'm split in half, happy when I'm talking with my father, but mad like hell when I talk to my mom after. I want all this to get better, but at the same time, I want her to hurt. What do I do now? TLDR. Mom hid her pregnancy and my existence from my biological father. He only found out about me when I went off on a drunken rant about how he abandoned us. Now he's back, and we're getting to know each other, like we should have years back. But I'm angry at my mom and worry that the anger won't go away. What the hell do I do? Relevant comments. No 1000XNO. I'd actually suggest you and your real father take a DNA test to verify things. And your mother knows why she chose what she chose. It was only 17 years ago. Your dad, who raised you, might know something too. Did you ask him? OP. Sorry, I wrote this in one go and completely forgot to put in his side of things. My dad had no clue either about what happened. He only came into our lives when I was around 3-4 years old. And he took what my mom said to him as the truth and didn't know otherwise until I talked with him about it recently. And the test was already done. He's my father. Mom keeps saying she doesn't really know. Little Imsriri. These kinds of things can become sticky and tricky. I would sit your mom down and talk to her about this. Tell her what you know. Tell her you're angry, deservedly. And tell her that you don't want to be angry at her forever. But you don't know how to get past this. OP. I did talk with her. Though I'll be the first one to admit it was less talk, and more me just throwing out one question after another, with her not answering and crying. I just want to know why, and she's not telling me SHT. I asked her if he was abusive to her, if he cheated, if he did anything to deserve something like this. But no, he apparently didn't do anything wrong. My father says they were just people that clicked poorly at times and didn't communicate well, So it kept escalating until it blew up in their faces. Then again, they were teenagers. Well, he was. My mom's older than him by a few years, so that's no surprise. OP on her parents' ages when she was conceived. She was 24 when she got pregnant. My dad will always be my dad. The fact that I found out the truth about my father doesn't negate the relationship we have, or the fact that he raised me as his own. He'll always be my dad, even if I grow close to my biological father, as I've grown close to my dad over the years. And he knows this. I made sure of it. And I think you really have your math wrong. My father was 19 when my mom, who's 5 years older than him, got pregnant. Even if he was 17, which he wasn't, it wouldn't matter, since I just checked. And the age of consent where we are is 14. Update. 1 month later. I found out why she told me the lie that my biological father didn't want me. It's maddeningly simple and stupid. She was basically getting to know my dad, her now ex-husband, and he wanted to know about my father's involvement in our lives. Put on the spot, she made up this ridiculous story about how he didn't really care for having a child. They didn't keep in touch, and over the years it evolved into a effing theater play, which is what I got years down the line when I asked about my father. My dad, I guess, didn't want to put salt in the wound, so he just avoided that subject in the future until I asked about it. That's it. That's the whole reason why I didn't know my father for my whole life up until recently. No, really. Because she didn't want to look like some spiteful, crazy woman who neglected to tell someone they're a father. She made this up. Which is some bitter irony for her, because she does look like a crazy and spiteful woman with the lies she told about my father. I am so mad at her. I can still barely control my anger around her. All I want to do is hurt her until she feels really hurt, like I was when I found I missed out on knowing my father all along and him getting to know me as well. I restrain myself more often than not. But goddamn, this isn't something that's going to be just pushed to the side. I don't know what we'll do, and I know that sometime in the future I'll probably re-establish having a good relationship with my mother. But right now, it's just not happening. But on the brighter side of things, I met my father. Some people mentioned in the last thread that I should be careful how, when, and where I met him. Someone thought I would be flying out of our country to meet him, I think. But given how everyone that knew him back then, and now had nothing but good to say about him, I connected with my father's side of the family. Have plenty of cousins, aunts, uncles, and so on to talk with and meet. And it's a bit overwhelming just how many of them are there, and how overjoyed they were to find out about me. I gave him a few dates when we could meet, and he picked this last weekend. He flew back on the Friday, visited his parents, my grandparents, and man, that's so weird, how I have another set of grandparents to the whole mix. And then we met up. I really don't know what I was expecting. I mean, yes, we talked. And he seemed very understanding and kind and good and so very interested in meeting me. But I guess there was just that up fear of him, not liking what he actually saw, and leaving. No, really, thanks for this SHT, Mom. It didn't matter in the least. As soon as we met, there was just this moment. I don't know how to describe it. I don't really think I ever had anything like that before. And he just hugged me. And I could feel him shaking. I think he was holding himself back from crying. And I started crying for no real reason. And then we talked and just spent the rest of the day together. We pretty much spent the whole weekend together. From the moment I got up, we talked. And by the time he was boarding his flight, I didn't want him to leave ever again, and he won't. Not really. He wanted to know everything about me, and I literally mean everything. And I guess what really made me actually love him is him asking to meet my dad, asking me if that was okay with me, and then thanking him for his part in raising me. They talked some more with each other, while I was busy with something else. And I think they became sort of friends. I don't really know what to call their relationship. So to all of you who helped me deal with my up situation, thank you. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. Even if it seemed like I was just venting out loud on the internet, thank you. Thank you all. Except those 1 or 2 people who thought my father was a rapist and an abuser. Seriously, WTF. TLDR. Mom told me the reason behind her lies, so she wouldn't look bad when she was dating my dad, and when they got serious. Still mad like hell. But eventually I think I'll get past it. Met my father in person, had a great time, got to know about a ton of family, and best of all, both he and my dad seem to get along. Thank you, everyone, for your support and help. Thank you for watching the video. If you are interested in listening to these kinds of stories, we've got more in store for you. Simply subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share it with your friends.